That's right, everybody. Overwatch D&D is back. You know the drill. I'm taking Overwatch characters, redesigning and rewriting their stories to put them in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm building off the lore of the previous 4 episodes. I'll link the playlist to those in the description and cards and whatever. But to give everyone a little refresher, let's do this. Previously on Overwatch Dungeons and Dragons. The bustling city of Gibraltar, home of many incredible warriors and adventurers, was overthrown by the tyrannical Shimada Empire. They're led by King Hanzo, who desires to rule as a just king, but faces friction from his advisors, who are trying to push cruel laws onto their newly acquired city. A band of warriors who want to see Gibraltar free and independent once again have gathered to fight off the Shimada rule. But as their rebellious ranks grow, so do the ranks of those who oppose them. If that refresher of the past lore got you excited at all, you know the drill, leave a like. And now let's finally get to someone I should have done ages ago, Winston. The ocean is a vast expanse of islands and territories, many of which have not been reached by intelligent minds or sentient life. It is one of these many islands where we meet a young, hyper-intelligent Girallon. In fact, on this island, many unusually smart Girallons can be found, but none of the others quite measured up to WINTUS. WINTUS, who would not give himself the name WINTUS until later on, was a part of an experiment being enacted by a group of explorative wizards who called themselves the New Horizons. These wizards searched the seas for new life and species and islands to see what they could learn from the unknown. To more rapidly expand their exploration, they decided to create and raise a group of hyper-intelligent Girallons using wizardry. They believed that if they granted enhanced sentience to these creatures and raised them with compassion, these Girallons would become ideal, loyal members of their ranks. And WINTUS was their greatest success. The black sheep of the group, for being born with black fur instead of the traditional white Girallon coat, WINTUS stood out for his appearance, but also for his adaptability. He was raised with great care by Harlan WINTUS, and he'd even become wise enough and intelligent enough to perform magic akin to the wizard's own abilities. But while WINTUS grew to be all that the New Horizons had hoped for, the other apes would not. The others gained some enhanced intelligence, but kept many of their violent animal instincts. They eventually rebelled and killed all of the wizards, and claimed the island for themselves as their new home colony. Although one wizard had in fact survived, but nobody would hear from him for some time, and we'll get to his tale later. WINTUS mourned the loss of his parental guardians, but he also knew that he couldn't remain on the island with the other apes. While he did have occasional spurts of animalistic rage, overall he was far too civilized to remain with the other apes. He took one of the Horizon's ships and set sail on the open sea, even taking the name of the man who'd raised him, WINTUS. He learned much on his travels and eventually found his way to a place he'd soon call home, the great city of Gibraltar. There he'd make friends and continue to expand his magical abilities he'd gained from the New Horizons. And eventually, when the Shimada Empire took over, WINTUS would become one of the founding members of the rebellion that spawned to reclaim the city from their tyrannical overlords. The rebellion was all that gave hope to the suffering people of Gibraltar. The rebels' careful watch over the city meant that there could one day be a bright morning after the long night of the Shimada reign. And while there were many creeds of warriors in this group, the city would come to lovingly call this group the Knights Overwatch. Cybron Deku had been a brilliant drow wizard who had joined the New Horizons solely for the purpose of gaining space to enact his dangerous experiments. Cybron had always been obsessed with levitation and flight, essentially the ability to control the airborne movement of oneself and one's surroundings through the theory of graviturgy. At the time, this was a brand of magic that none had ever successfully conjured. He believed it to be a superior form of magic that could be one of the most powerful weapons the world had ever known, if harnessed correctly. Though his obsession with accomplishing graviturgy led him to trying his hand at some pretty dangerous black magic spells. He was in the middle of a dangerous enchantment on a New Horizons settlement when the Girallon experiments on the island attacked. He was struck by an ape mid-spell and the magic went terribly wrong, cursing his mind and body with fluctuating states of levitation. He was hurled from the island and hovered through the air out of control, flailing in and out of the water as he soared across the sea. He eventually reached another small island and managed to grab hold of a tree to keep himself in place. His enchantment had worked in a way, but the incomplete spell had set him and his surroundings into a constant flux. He spent the next years of his life building proper control of these abilities. While it was still unpredictable at times, he did indeed manage to gain relatively steady control of his flight and levitation magic. But with the black magic gifts that he'd gained, Cybran also lost much of his sanity, and the time alone on this island didn't help that. But eventually he was found by a passing Shimada Empire ship. They rescued him from the island and, recognizing his power, gave him what he needed to continue honing his abilities, attempting to build his trust in them. They knew that he could make a powerful asset in battle. Eventually, they'd take advantage of the goodwill that they'd grown in him and send him to assist in a little problem they were having with the rebels of Gibraltar. The assistants to King Hanzo, who were slowly trying to take control of the Empire for themselves, planned to use him alongside their Goliath fist to kill off the Knights Overwatch before their ranks could grow any farther. You know, for a really old dude, Sigma's got some crazy big shoulders. Like, I don't know what's armor and what's actually his body, but either way, good on him. I hope when I'm 6,000 years old or however old he's supposed to be, I've got shoulders that are that nice. But anyway, it's time to do one of my favorite things to do in this series, and that's a team-up shot. Let's get to Ashe and Bob. The Knights Overwatch were a formidable group, but they were still no match for an army and for the expanding ranks of powerful warriors that the Shimada Empire was gathering to combat them. They needed more help, and this need led to a meeting in which the members discussed and debated any allies they'd encountered in the past that they could reach out to for help. Many people were discussed. Warriors from across the land were proposed, such as a bard revolutionary, a halfling summoner who'd fended off a kraken, even a druid cyclops monk. All were desired assets, but one further member was mentioned by many in the group, and due to unfortunate circumstances, this potential member of the Knights Overwatch had recently been acquired by an old friend of the Dread Pirate McCree. Now, McCree had been in the ranks of the Knights Overwatch for some months now, but a branch of his old band of pirates was still sailing the high seas, continuing their plundering and heists. They were being led by Captain Ashe, backed up by her butler turned first mate, a warforged named Robert. Ashe had once been the daughter of a wealthy earl and countess who lived in an extravagant home, one that was prime for thieving. Years ago, she'd caught a young Dread Pirate McCree breaking into her home to rob her family, but instead of being afraid, she was fascinated. He'd snuck past all their guards and managed to gather an impressive collection of their jewels without being detected. Her warforged butler had even tried to stop him, but McCree had easily dispatched the brutish bot. Ashe decided to run away from her boring royal life and join McCree. On a whim, they even brought the butler and had an artificer re-enchant him to be a pirate warrior instead of a glorified housekeeper. After an eventual falling out with McCree, she'd take part of the crew and form her own branch of the Deadlock Pirates. While McCree had settled in Gibraltar to help the Knights Overwatch, Ashe continued her reign as a master thief, plundering in every town from Gothalo to Stragaria. But this onslaught of robberies is eventually what led her to unknowingly acquire a dormant warrior that the Knights Overwatch desperately needed. Now, the warrior that the Knights of Overwatch currently sought wasn't exactly a person they'd once known, but the creation of an old friend. The Changeling artificer, Man Lao, had had connections to many members of the current team, having worked closest with Torbjorn the Forger. Years prior, they'd worked together as artificers for the Queen of Gibraltar, but long before the Shimada invasion, Man Lao had been let go for doing experiments to build warforged knights that the Queen deemed too dangerous. Man Lao had wanted to give the warriors too much intelligence and agency, and the Queen, like many others, feared that these warforged would rise up and rebel if made too intelligent and powerful. But Man Lao believed that by giving more humanity and empathy to these warforged, they could make more informed, mature decisions in battle or as servants, instead of simply acting on orders. Man Lao left Gibraltar for the city of Sinagaran, and without the assets provided by the kingdom, she had to limit her experiments to one single warforged being. But she poured her whole heart and soul into this creature. She built it with the magical essence of her own species, changelings, hoping that their shapeshifting abilities would grant this warforged the power to transform into a state more trusting and pleasant to biological beings. While most of its body, in a resting state, did appear like a somewhat advanced warforged, its face did take on the appearance of changelings, indeed making it a more warm and friendly-looking being. The creation did seem to truly come alive, as if Man Lao had in fact created sentient life. It learned from all of Man Lao's movements and actions and could even shapeshift into Man Lao and any other beings that she came across, though only for brief periods of time. Because of this, Man Lao gave her creation the name Echo, because she was essentially an echo of Man Lao's humanity. But soon, even before they'd gone for Gibraltar, the Shimada Empire came for Sinagaran. They took the city like most others they'd come for, and hearing of Man Lao's experiments, they attacked her home, killing her and stealing her beloved creation, intending to use Echo for their own nefarious purposes. But Man Lao's work had paid off, and Echo had too much empathy for her fellow beings to be used as a ruthless weapon. Because the Shimada Empire couldn't control her, they locked her away in a crate to be shipped off and stored away for later experiments. This is how Captain Ashe came to acquire her. In a raid of a Shimada outpost, they took the crate containing Echo along with many other treasures, not knowing what they'd just found. But McCree eventually found Ashe. He tried to ask nicely for the crate, but of course pirates will be pirates, and a duel commenced. McCree was drastically outnumbered, but that wasn't the first time he'd been in an unfair fight. He bested them all, got his sword pointed at the throat of Ashe, and told her to have her pirates back off. She did so grudgingly, and McCree had his bounty. McCree allowed Ashe and her crew to return to their spree of heists, but he and Echo set off for Gibraltar. While Echo mourned the loss of her creator, she was eager to assist Man Lao's friends in a noble fight. This warforged changeling's shapeshifting abilities, along with some other impressive skills, would make her an incredible asset in the fight to reclaim Gibraltar. Hands up if you got the sneaky reference to the Batman D&D episodes. Because, as I've sort of been establishing over the last little while, all of my D&D episodes are in a connected world. Batman D&D episodes, even the Ben 10 D&D episode. Maybe I'll even find a way to tie my dragons in at some point. I'm definitely going to do more stuff like this. Lots of people have been suggesting an Avengers D&D episode that I'm probably going to get to at some point. I keep meaning to do Spider-Man characters and villains in D&D. I don't know, what do you want to see most put into D&D? My Hero Academia? More video game characters? Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you enjoyed this and you aren't subscribed, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when videos come out right away on Fridays and Mondays. And of course, I can't forget about the Art Battle PopCross submissions. A whole bunch of new superhero teams have been posted, facing off against my team, and they're all looking so cool. I'll probably show one more batch of submissions in Monday's episode, but even after that, I'll keep going and checking out people's posts if they're still posting after that. Awesome work, everyone. But anyway, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Christian Pearson. This is PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.